under the cool shade of the sala trees, as the afternoon sunlight began to fade across the canopy, a quiet conversation took place, one that has touched human hearts for centuries. Venerable Ananda, the loyal disciple who always remained by the side of the world-honored one, stood silently with eyes red from weeping. The sorrow of knowing his beloved teacher was about to leave. This world was more than he could bear, and the tears simply continued to fall. The departure of such a great spiritual pillar was a massive shock, leaving one heart reeling and feeling utterly forsaken. Seeing his disciple drowned in grief, the world-honored one did not offer words of reproach. He looked at Ananda with an eye of warmth and compassion, speaking in a voice as gentle as a breeze whispering through the leaves. He reminded Ananda that everything we love or hold dear is, by its very nature, impermanent, subject to decay, and destined for separation. To have a meeting without a parting is an impossibility in this world. Everything that is born and everything that takes a form carries within it the essence of dissolution. To wish for something not to be destroyed is to wish for the impossible. These simple teachings did more than just extinguish the fires of sorrow in the disciple heart. At that moment, they serve as a mirror reflecting the anxieties and insecurities of human beings in our modern daily lives. When we look deeply into our everyday existence, it is easy to see the pressure and exhaustion that every person carries. We wake up early to a long list of to-dos, missed calls, and a deluge of work messages. We rush out the door, cram into traffic, and sit at our desks with a vague sense of dread about the future. Those flickering thoughts and minor worries accumulate, eventually forming an invisible but massive storm of insecurity within the soul. The actual cause lies in a very natural habit of the mind, which is attachment to the familiar. When we have a stable job, a warm relationship, or even a comfortable daily routine, the mind immediately builds an underlying belief that these things will last forever. This attachment happens silently, without a sound. We take what we have for granted and begin to pour all our affection and hope into it. However, the laws of life operate in a completely different way. Every element around us, from the weather and human hearts to economic conditions, is constantly changing every second and every minute. When a sudden change occurs, for instance, a close colleague transfers to another department, a passion project is cancelled, or simply a rainy afternoon ruins outdoor plans, a sense of loss immediately appears. That feeling of emptiness is the inevitable consequence of craving stability in a world that never stops turning. Fatigue does not come from the work itself or from unwanted events. It comes from the silent internal resistance to change. It is like a person trying to swim against a violent current, where the harder they try to stay in one spot, the faster they become exhausted. When we cannot accept the reality that everything is flowing away, the mind constantly generates regrets about why things happened the way they did, or longings for things to be the way they used to be. These thoughts consume a vast amount of energy, keeping the mind in a state of tension and weariness, even when the body is not performing heavy labor. To better understand this mechanism, we can look at the Buddhist principle that those who meet must eventually part. This philosophy points out that every gathering or union in this world is, in reality, just a preparation for an upcoming separation. When two people meet and become friends, the moment the relationship begins is exactly when the hourglass of separation starts its countdown. Separation can come from moving away, a change in mindset, or ultimately death. Understanding this does not make life cold or pessimistic. On the contrary, it brings a profound appreciation for the present moment. When you know that the flower in the vase will eventually wither, you will gaze upon it with more intention. When you know that this meeting will end, the words spoken to one another become gentler and more kind. Suffering only appears when there is a misunderstanding, such as viewing a gathering as eternal or viewing separation as an abnormal disaster. The nature of the tide is that there must be an ebb and a flow. The water rises, and then it recedes. And this is the perfectly natural breath of the river. We might recall the story of King Pasenadi when Queen Mallika suddenly passed away. The queen was not only a virtuous wife, but also a spiritual soulmate. She always offered wise counsel that helped the king navigate difficult decisions. Her sudden departure left the king completely broken. He could not attend court. His appearance withered. His heart was pierced with pain, and the entire world seemed to crumble before his eyes. In his extreme despair, the king sought out the world-honored one for comfort. The world-honored one looked upon the grieving king with deep compassion. He did not use mystical words or long-winded lectures. He pointed to a simple truth, that there are 5 things in this world that no one can avoid. That which is subject to aging must age. That which is subject to illness must fall ill. That which is subject to death must die. That which is subject to decay must decay. And that which is subject to dissolution must dissolve. He explained that weeping or grieving cannot change this law. It only makes the body frail, the mind dark, and those around us more worried. This simple enlightenment was like a cool breeze blowing through the king's scorched soul. He realized that his pain came from wanting to hold on to someone who by nature did not belong to him forever. Queen Mallika, like all other sentient beings, was merely a guest passing through his life for a certain period. When the karmic conditions for their meeting ended, that guest had to continue her journey. By understanding this, the king was able to let go of his sorrow, stand up, and continue his responsibility of caring for his country with a heart that was more tolerant and understanding. Furthermore, life and death are not two separate or opposing worlds. From a Taoist perspective, they are a unified whole, depending on and driving one another. A concept known as the interdependence of life and death. Living and dying are like breathing out and breathing in. If you do not breathe out, you cannot breathe in. If there were no death to clear away what is old and has finished its task, there would be no space for new seeds of life or fresh things to be born. A yellow leaf falling to the base of a tree in autumn is not a tragedy. It is a necessary yielding of space so that vibrant green shoots can sprout in the warm spring. The decaying leaf itself will become the nutrients that nourish the very tree that gave birth to it. The death of the leaf is the prerequisite for the life of the leaves that follow. If the yellow leaf clung tightly to the branch and refused to fall, the tree could not grow, and new life would be suffocated. In daily life, this is also perfectly true regarding our thoughts and habits. If we do not allow old concepts, mistaken prejudices, or past traumas to die, we cannot receive fresh perspectives or the simple joys of today. Clinging to past glories or old failures only makes the mind stagnant and heavy. Letting what has passed fall into natural oblivion is the best way to rebirth the life energy within oneself. Once one thoroughly understands the Buddhist law that birth and death have ceased, and that stillness is bliss, the heart reaches a strange state of tranquility. This philosophy points out that the conditioned life is inherently moving toward dissolution. Human greatest insecurity usually stems from the fear of death, the fear of losing the existence of the self and what belongs to it. But when one realizes that this flow of birth and death is natural, and that death is just a part of the game of life, the mind will no longer waver. True peace is not about finding a place to hide from death, but about extinguishing the notion of clinging to that flow of birth and death. When there is no longer regret for what is lost, and no fear of what is to come, the mind falls into a state of absolute stillness, much like a lake without a single ripple once the wind has stopped blowing. This is a natural peace that no external condition can shake. Imagine a cat lying in the sun on a porch. The cat does not worry about whether it will rain tomorrow, nor does it regret the delicious piece of fish it ate the day before. When the warm sun shines on its back, it closes its eyes and fully enjoys that warmth. When the sun fades, it gently stands up and finds another warm corner to lie in. The cat lives entirely within the flow of nature, without resistance, and without the craving for everything to stand still. We humans often make ourselves suffer by thinking too much, comparing too much, and wanting to control things that cannot be controlled. Bringing this tranquility into busy days is not difficult. We do not need to go to distant valleys or abandon all the work we are doing. Everything can start from very small and simple actions. When you feel work pressure rising and your mind begins to reel with plans, pause for a minute. Put your phone aside, pour a glass of warm water, and focus entirely on drinking that water. Feel the warmth of the glass through your palms and feel the cool stream of water passing through your throat. In that 1 minute, there is no project to complete, no message to answer. There is only the person drinking water and the warm glass. Bringing the mind back to this simple reality is the most effective way to soothe the nervous system. When a workday closes, learn to shut the door on work decisively. Today, worries have ended, so leave tomorrow tasks for tomorrow. Bringing those anxieties home only ruins a warm evening with loved ones and reduces the quality of your sleep. Let today die completely when you lay your back on the bed, so that when you wake up tomorrow morning, a new day is born with completely fresh energy. Impermanence is not something to be feared. It is a wonderful opportunity. Because of impermanence, today's sadness cannot last forever. Because of impermanence, current difficulties will eventually pass. Because of impermanence, every morning we wake up is a chance to start over from the beginning. The constant transformation of life is its beauty, like the clouds that continually change shape across the blue sky. When we stop over-calculating for a tomorrow that has not arrived, the heart naturally becomes as light as a leaf floating on the water. There is no need to brace oneself to fight the world. Simply float with the flow of nature, with an open attitude and full of faith. When we no longer cling to the union, the separation will no longer bring heart-wrenching pain. When we accept death as a part of life, every moment of being alive becomes more precious and radiant than ever. This insight does not come from reading many books. It comes from quietly observing the life around us with a compassionate heart and a truthful gaze.